Last month, there was a new study, a longitudinal study that came out looking at the relationship between EBV and MS. So many of you probably have received information on Facebook and Twitter and emails and stuff talking about the relationship between EBV, the virus, and MS. And there's been articles that came out since that longitudinal study was published asking, does EBV cause MS? So I wanted to look at this directly today, really head on. So to start, let's look at the stats of this study that came out last month. This was a study that took 10 million military since the minute they're enlisted, or even before they're enlisted, until, during their whole 20 years of being in the service. They get blood tests every few years. There was a really good sampling, and they could actually extract from there and test for EBV. And so what they saw was 94.7 of them already had the virus of EBV before they're enlisted, which is usually around the age of 20. During the time that they were in the military, those that didn't end up with MS, only half of them, a little over half, 57%, got EBV during that time of their lives. And of those that during the time they were military that got MS, it turned out that 97 of them had gotten EBV, usually about 5 years before diagnosis. So if we really look at just like general stats, we have 95% of the general population, that means everybody, has EBV. 0.3% of the general population has MS, especially here in the United States and Canada and most of Europe. Other places it's less. And 99.5% of the population with MS has EBV. So there's a higher correlation. So the question becomes, does EBV cause MS? Well, it depends on the lens with which you are seeing these stats. And so today I wanted to share those two medical lenses so that we can look at this relationship between the EBV virus and MS. There are two theories in the medical field when it comes to viruses. One is called the germ theory, and one is called the terrain or cellular theory. In the germ theory, it's thought that disease arises from microorganisms that are outside the body that come in, invade the body. In terrain theory, the thought is that disease arises from the microorganisms that are already within the body. Okay, in germ theory, there's microorganisms, the relationship is you should guard against them, right? You should keep distance from microorganisms, and disease can strike anyone. In terrain theory, microorganisms are seen as elements that are sharing your body space and that they assist your body in different functions. They're necessary. And they become pathogenic, so they become dangerous to us only when only when we are unhealthy. Then there's a disruption in that collaboration. In germ theory, the microorganisms are the primary cause of disease. So if you're looking at this EBV-MS, there's a search for what is the virus, what is the bacteria, the parasite that's causing the MS, because the concept is to look for the microorganism. In terrain theory, however, the primary cause is not the microorganisms. The primary cause is the condition of the host, the condition of our bodies. So in germ theory, to prevent disease, you need to build strong defenses and you need to eliminate germs and viruses, right? Clean it up. While in terrain theory, to prevent disease, we need to create health. You need to create health in the host. This is coming from the Nurse Healthcare Journal. It's a very standard journal from 2017, this information. I can post that also, you guys can look at it. So if we look at these, the main science, so this is like, these two theories came out in around the mid 1800s. If you think about it, the microscope had maybe 150 years or so. It got better and better, like everything, right? They started to be able to see as smaller and smaller. Before we can only see bacteria. Now we could start seeing, you know, a little underneath that. And so you had these, they were, you know, we had different assumptions. What's happening at those levels, right? And so Pasteur and other scientists the assumption was that the microbes are creating the disease, and we need to be careful of microbes, right? Microbes will have the last word. Béchamp and other scientists were saying, no, the microbes are everywhere. They're in the dirt, they're in our gut, they're in our bodies. The microbe isn't the problem. The problem is the terrain, the host. So in germ theory, the process goes that a virus comes into the body through the mouth, through the respiratory tract, through your eyes, your genitals, broken skin. It attaches to a cell. It's able to enter the cell, and within the cell, it duplicates, then exits the cell and begins to spread. So the solution to that is to set up barriers and avoid them altogether, to teach the immune system to fight them or to kill them, right, with some antiviral treatments. In terrain theory, the process is that the viruses live in the body and they collaborate with the cells. But when your cells become unhealthy due to overburdens, and these are things such as you haven't been sleeping very much because you just bought a house and you're trying to work on it at night after work, or you have a big project, or you're traveling a lot for work, so your sleep is disrupted, you're eating processed foods, you're a little bit overweight, all these things are burdening the body as well. You feel isolated, you have conflicts with your family of origin, and you're in a toxic relationship, and mentally you haven't really let go of grief, you feel guilty, there's a lot of resentment with your family, you could be very self-critical, you fear a lot of things. In these environments where there's all this burden from all these different things, and then childhood, right? Your dad was alcoholic, and so sometimes he would just burst out, and so there's a sensitivity to other people's feelings, and there's a fear of people that are very loud, etc., etc. In these environments, terrains, the cells become unhealthy, and thus the viruses can, instead of help, they actually become harmful because they start cleaning up and killing these unhealthy cells, which are what they're supposed to do, but there's too many of them. So what is the solution? Unload as much as possible all these issues. Take your relationship to marriage family counseling, or break up with the person, change jobs if your job keeps threatening to fire you because they're downsizing. Work on your childhood issues, eat cleaner, prioritize sleep, etc., right? Because when you unburden, the cells can repair, replace, and renew, thus the virus cannot thrive. And there's another theory also mentioned here in the Nurse Healthcare Journal, which is the germ-terrain duality. And what does that say? Well, it says that disease is a very complex interplay between germs and the integrity of the body cells, right? Think about it as well. Remember, these
this study, the EBV, you already had it before the age of 20, 94.7% of the time, right? When the average is 95. In this duality, you have to consider that when you're in your mother's womb, she's already sharing her viruses, bacteria, germs, microbes. When you go through the birth canal, again, you're exposed. When you lactate from your mother, you're exposed. Then as you start growing up, as you share toys with kids, you scratch, you eat dirt, your first kiss, your sexual activities, blood transfusions, all these different things helps you share with the environment. And depending on the integrity of the body cells, you can get sick from all these experiences or not. So, does EBV cause MS? Any questions or any comments, or what comes up for you?
I can say something.
Yeah.
I mean, I've learned for a long time, even in medical school in the early 90s, that almost 100% of people diagnosed with MS have an EBV virus antibodies, and that the general population has fewer. And if you do kids, they have way fewer than 97% or 95%. It's adults that have almost 100%. Whatever they said, 95% are positive for EBV. So they've been postulating for a while, and I think that's why they did this study with the military, is that if you gave an EBV vaccine to infants, that you may be able to prevent MS. And I think that's fascinating personally. I know exactly when I got an EBV, and I also know exactly when I got chickenpox, which I got chickenpox when I was 29. And they've also associated chickenpox as an adult with MS. And I had my first MS symptoms about 8 months after I had the chickenpox as an adult. And I had a terrible case of chickenpox as an adult. And I never had it as a kid. And that was prior to to the vaccine. So, anyway, I subscribe definitely to the theory that it's an interplay between both. But I do think that certain viruses have been more implicated than others with MS, which is not to say that you would necessarily eliminate all MS if everybody got a vaccine when they were born.
Yeah, because it still had, even on this study, there was someone with MS without EBV.
Yeah, so maybe there would end up being another virus that would be implicated. That's what we don't know.
I also wanted to share, I just put a study. I think there's been more than one study that's come out recently. And there was the Harvard study, which I think is the one you're talking about, that was looking at this interplay. But there was also something that's come out last few weeks from Stanford that found a protein that was in the EBV virus that was also linked to directly attacking the immune system, that found that was much more than just this. I might have the terminology here, but it's a causational link, not a causality link. I might have the terminology wrong there, but that it really did find this mechanism for the EBV virus to be linked to MS. But to your question, I think the duality makes a lot of sense. And that and then also the approach to it can be looking at it both ways. But also one of the reactions I have to that is some of the terrain, we know so much about ACEs, that a lot of what sets up someone's terrain is about stress in childhood, and particularly trauma in childhood. And so the things that people can do today to kind of mitigate that are really strong, but like the uh, in looking at it societally, there's also an approach to really looking at this, you know, prevention of adverse impacts on children can do more to impact the train than, you know, there's certainly things that once we're adults, you know, we can all do to impact that, but also we're looking at it as a society and really focusing on children with this.
Yeah.